Evelyn Harper had always been the embodiment of simplicity. In the quaint town of Willow Creek, she was the woman who baked the most delightful apple pies for the church bake sale, the patient instructor who taught knitting at the community center, and the neighbor who always had a kind word and a warm smile. Her days were filled with tending to her garden, volunteering at the local shelter, and sharing stories with the children who adored her. Yet, beneath this serene exterior lay a past shrouded in mystery, a chapter of her life she had carefully tucked away, known to none in the town she now called home. On a bright Saturday morning, as the sun cast golden hues across the landscape, Evelyn found herself standing before the imposing gates of the Thunder Valley shooting range. The range was renowned, a place where marksmen from all over gathered to test their skills and compete in prestigious tournaments. Clad in her usual attire, simple jeans, worn sneakers, and a faded blue sweater, she was a stark contrast to the other competitors who sported sleek shooting gear and brandished state-of-the-art firearms. Her presence drew curious glances, some laced with amusement, others with skepticism. Approaching the registration desk, Evelyn's calm demeanor remained unshaken. "I'm here to sign up for the marksmanship contest," she said softly. The man behind the desk, engrossed in his paperwork, looked up briefly. His eyes scanned her attire, lingering momentarily on her well-worn rifle case. With a dismissive nod, he handed her a registration tag. "Good luck," he muttered, clearly unconvinced of her capabilities. Evelyn made her way to a quiet corner of the range, away from the bustling crowd. She gently placed her rifle case on the bench and opened it to reveal a Winchester Model 70. The rifle, though aged, gleamed with meticulous care. Every part of it bore testament to countless hours of maintenance and an intimate familiarity that only years of use could forge. As she began assembling her gear, the ambient noise of the range faded into the background, replaced by the rhythmic cadence of her breathing and the soft clinks of metal. Her tranquility was soon interrupted by a voice dripping with condescension. "Ma'am," drawled Blake the Bullseye Carter, the reigning champion known for his flamboyant style and unmatched precision. "You sure you're in the right place? This isn't a knitting competition." Evelyn turned to face him, her eyes meeting his with unwavering calm. A gentle smile played on her lips. "Thank you for your concern," she replied, her voice steady. Blake chuckled, clearly amused, before sauntering off to join his entourage. Undeterred, Evelyn resumed her preparations, her focus unbroken. She adjusted her scope, checked the alignment, and ensured every component was in optimal condition. Each movement was deliberate, a dance of precision honed over years of practice. As the announcement for the first round echoed across the range, competitors took their positions. Evelyn stepped up to her designated spot, the weight of the rifle familiar in her hands. She took a deep breath, the world narrowing down to the target ahead. In that moment, the whispers, the doubts, and the skepticism melted away, leaving only her, the rifle, and the target. The signal was given. Evelyn's finger gently squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, echoing across the range. A hush fell over the spectators as they awaited the results. The monitor displayed her score, a perfect bullseye, surpassing even Blake's previous record. Gasps of astonishment rippled through the crowd. Evelyn lowered her rifle, her expression serene. She had come not to prove herself to others but to reconnect with a part of her she had long set aside. As she prepared for the next round, the murmurs grew louder, but she remained centered, ready to face whatever came next. As the sun climbed higher into the sky and the day's warmth settled over Thunder Valley shooting range, the gathered crowd thickened, their anticipation palpable as whispers and murmurs flowed like an undercurrent through the gathering. Spectators leaned forward over the railings, eyes narrowed with expectation as competitors prepared for their turn at the firing line. Among them, Blake the Bullseye Carter preened, his reputation preceding him as the undisputed champion of the marksmanship contest. He swaggered with the self-assurance of a man accustomed to winning, his custom-built rifle gleaming beneath the morning sun, polished to a blinding shine as though its very finish might secure his victory. He flexed his fingers theatrically, cracking his knuckles, a practiced ritual designed to draw the crowd's attention and inspire awe, their cheers rising in response to his familiar performance. His eyes, sharp and predatory, scanned the audience and then fixed on Evelyn Harper, who stood quietly at the end of the line, her modest Winchester Model 70 cradle gently in her arms. Unlike the other competitors clad in tactical gear and sport shooting vests adorned with sponsor patches, Evelyn wore her simple faded jeans, a plain blue sweater, and her well-worn sneakers, her presence nearly invisible amid the spectacle around her. Yet, she moved with a quiet precision, her hands steady as she checked her scope and adjusted the angle with the practiced ease of someone intimately familiar with her rifle, her actions smooth and deliberate. She ignored the whispered commentary that buzzed around her like irritating static. She doesn't stand a chance, who let her in anyway? This isn't a hobby for grandmas. The judge, a tall man with a stern expression and a clipboard in hand, called for the competitors to load their rifles. Blake gave Evelyn one last smug, dismissive glance before turning to face his target, his posture rigid with confidence as he prepared for his shot. The air grew taut, the tension thickening as the signal sounded. Blake raised his rifle in a fluid motion, his every gesture calculated for maximum effect, and fired. The crack of his shot reverberated sharply, echoing across the range, his bullet slicing through the air with practiced precision before slamming into the bullseye. A perfect hit. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, their excitement swirling around him like a tangible force. Evelyn watched silently, her expression unreadable, her breath slow and measured. Then, as the judge reset the targets and called her name, she stepped forward, her movements calm and unhurried. The murmurs around her swelled into incredulous disbelief. Is she really going to try? This will be embarrassing. I hope she doesn't hurt herself. But Evelyn paid them no mind. She had long ago mastered the art of shutting out distractions, of focusing entirely on the task before her. Her breathing slowed further, her heartbeat settling into a steady, measured rhythm that synchronized with the faint rustle of wind through the trees lining the range. The weight of the rifle in her hands felt familiar, an old friend's embrace, and as she brought the scope to her eye, the rest of the world faded into a blur of colors and sounds. Only the target remained in sharp focus, distant yet clear, a single point of focus in a universe of distractions. Years of muscle memory surged back through her, the countless hours she had spent honing her craft in another life, a life she had chosen to leave behind for simpler days and quieter moments. The gentle squeeze of her finger against the trigger was almost imperceptible, a smooth, practiced motion that sent the bullet hurtling through the air. The shot cracked across the range, silencing the crowd mid-whisper, the echo ringing long after the bullet had struck its target. Time seemed to hang suspended in the breathless stillness that followed, every eye fixed on the monitor as the judge leaned forward to read the score. His eyes widened in disbelief, and he called out the result in a voice that trembled with astonishment. Evelyn's shot had not merely equaled Blake's. It had surpassed it. Her bullet had struck the target a mere 0.01 millimeters closer to the exact center, breaking his record by the narrowest, most precise margin possible. For a moment, the world was silent, the collective disbelief of the crowd settling over the range like a heavy fog. Then, as reality sank in, gasps of shock and murmurs of amazement rippled outward, growing into a swelling tide of excitement and speculation. Blake's face twisted with incredulity, his mouth working silently as though trying to grasp how this quiet, unassuming woman had outshot him. Evelyn, however, remained composed. She stepped back from the line, gently reloading her rifle with practiced ease, her face calm, her hands steady. The murmurs around her grew louder, the crowd buzzing with speculation and disbelief, cameras flashing as reporters scrambled to capture the moment, their questions tumbling over one another. But Evelyn ignored them, her focus unwavering. She knew this was only the beginning. More rounds awaited, more shots to be taken. This was merely the first step in a journey she had never intended to undertake, but one that she would now see through to its end. As she prepared for the next round, she caught a fleeting glimpse of Blake's glare, his confidence now replaced by a simmering frustration. She offered him a small, almost imperceptible smile, a quiet acknowledgement of his surprise and her determination. Then, with the calm of someone who had faced far greater challenges than the judgment of a crowd, Evelyn turned back to her rifle, her breath slowing once more, her mind sharpening to the task at hand. The second round was about to begin. The atmosphere at Thunder Valley shooting range had undergone a palpable transformation. Where once there had been dismissive glances and patronizing smiles directed at Evelyn Harper, now there was a mix of curiosity, respect, and, in some cases, apprehension. Competitors who had previously overlooked her presence now found themselves stealing glances in her direction, their expressions a blend of intrigue and unease. Blake, the bullseye Carter, the reigning champion whose confidence had been as unshakable as his aim, was visibly unsettled. His swagger had diminished, replaced by a tightness in his jaw and a furrow in his brow. Unable to contain his frustration, he approached Evelyn during a break between rounds. "Beginner's luck?" he sneered, attempting to mask his insecurity with bravado. "Let's see if you can keep that up." Evelyn met his gaze calmly, her voice steady. "I suppose we'll see." Word of Evelyn's unexpected prowess spread rapidly throughout the range. Spectators and competitors alike buzzed with speculation. Reporters arrived, cameras flashing, eager to capture the story of the unassuming woman who had outshot the champion. Some of the regulars whispered theories about her background, but none could pinpoint where she came from or how she had honed such remarkable skill. As the competition progressed, Evelyn's performance remained consistently exceptional. Her shots were precise, each one landing closer to the center than the last. Her demeanor was unwavering, a stark contrast to the growing tension among the other competitors. Their frustration mounted, not just from the pressure of the contest, but from the silent confidence exuded by the woman they had once dismissed. During a brief intermission, an older veteran of the range approached Evelyn. He wore a weathered hat and bore the marks of someone who had spent a lifetime around firearms. "You've got quite a talent there, ma'am," he said, tipping his hat. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Evelyn offered a faint smile, her eyes reflecting a depth of experience. "Long story," she replied, leaving it at that. Meanwhile, Blake was grappling with his own turmoil. His confidence had been shaken, and he knew that his final round would be critical. He needed a perfect score to reclaim his record and restore his standing. As he prepared for his shot, he took a deep breath, attempting to steady his nerves. He gave it everything he had, focusing intently as he pulled the trigger. The shot was good, exceptional even, but it fell just shy of his previous mark. All eyes turned to Evelyn. It all came down to her final shot. As Evelyn Harper stepped back into position for her final shot, a hush fell over Thunder Valley shooting range so complete that even the distant rustle of leaves beyond the barriers seemed muted. The morning sun, which had earlier cast long golden rays, now sat higher in the sky, pouring down a relentless, searing light that sharpened every shadow and cast a glow around Evelyn's calm silhouette. Reporters clustered just beyond the sidelines, their cameras poised like sentinels, the lenses reflecting specks of light that danced across her steady form. Blake Carter's frustration was now palpable, his features contorted into a mask of disbelief and denial as he stood near his own station, arms crossed tightly over his chest. The crowd, once raucous with cheers and jeers, now watched in suspended silence, each person holding their breath, as though exhaling too soon might disrupt the unfolding spectacle. Evelyn, the woman they had dismissed as an amateur, a quaint distraction in a field dominated by seasoned marksmen, stood at the center of it all, her demeanor unruffled, her expression one of quiet resolve. She knew, in this moment, that the culmination of years, the years of discipline, of experience, of battles fought in silence, was distilled into the space between her breath and her trigger finger. Her hands, though appearing delicate, had once cradled the weight of a sniper rifle under hostile skies, had steadied amidst the chaos of war where split-second decisions spelled life or death. She had faced more than mere competition. She had stared into the abyss of human conflict and emerged, not unscathed, but quietly unbreakable. Here, before a crowd unaware of the depth behind her simple appearance, she prepared to leave a mark not just on the target downrange, but on every spectator's memory. The judge, his hands trembling now with a mixture of reverence and disbelief, glanced between Evelyn and the scoring monitors, his pencil hovering uncertainly above his clipboard. Evelyn's breath slowed, her pulse syncing with the silent cadence of her training. She inhaled deeply, filling her lungs with the warm, sunlit air, feeling it expand against her ribcage, grounding her in the present. With each heartbeat, memories cascaded through her mind, the acrid scent of gunpowder on a battlefield, the sharp reports of rifles echoing across broken terrain, the cool metal of her rifle's stock pressed against her cheek. The whispered encouragement of her old commanding officer who once told her that precision wasn't about arrogance or bravado but about trust. Trust in oneself, trust in one's training, trust in the breath that centered the body before the shot. Evelyn exhaled slowly, a deliberate release of tension, and as the crosshairs of her scope aligned with the target, the world around her narrowed to a single point of focus. Her finger curled gently around the trigger, applying just the right amount of pressure, no more, no less. The crack of the rifle shot reverberated like a thunderclap, shattering the breathless silence and sending a sharp echo rolling through the range. The crowd, held in thrall, collectively leaned forward as the scoring monitor flickered to life. There, illuminated in digital clarity, was the result, a perfect center hit, a shot so precise it not only bested Blake's previous record but etched itself into the annals of the range's history as the finest ever recorded. The murmurs swelled into a wave of astonished applause, hands clapping in rapid succession, cheers rising to meet the moment as though the spectators had suddenly remembered how to breathe. Reporters surged forward, their voices overlapping as they clamored for her attention, questions tumbling from their lips. How did you do it? What's your secret? Who are you really? Blake's complexion, once flushed with confidence, now paled as he turned away, his earlier bravado crumbling into silent defeat. Evelyn, for her part, remained composed, her gaze steady as she lowered her rifle and began packing her gear with the same measured precision she had demonstrated in her shooting. When a young reporter, his notepad trembling slightly in his hand, finally reached her and breathlessly asked, "Please, tell us, how did you manage to break the champion's record?" She offered a gentle, enigmatic smile, the lines around her eyes deepening with a hint of quiet satisfaction. "Sometimes," she said softly, "you just have to trust in your skills." The simplicity of her words belied the complex tapestry of her life, the years spent in military service, the countless hours on ranges far from home, the silent sacrifices she had made, and the weight of responsibility she had carried without complaint. Her decision to leave that life behind and settle into the peaceful rhythm of Willow Creek had been driven by a desire for tranquility, not by a loss of skill or ambition. But today, faced with skepticism and derision, she had chosen, perhaps subconsciously, to remind herself and the world of who she truly was. As she shouldered her rifle case and turned to leave, the crowd parted before her, whispers trailing in her wake. Who was she really? Did you see that shot? She's a legend. Evelyn didn't look back. Her steps were steady, her head held high, her path leading her away from the flashing cameras and the lingering stares. She knew that her presence would linger in the memories of those who had witnessed her quiet triumph, a testament to the truth that skill, honed through experience and tempered with humility, could speak louder than words. Behind her, the shooting range buzzed with the energy of the day's events, but for Evelyn Harper, the moment had already passed. She had come not for recognition or accolades, but for the simple satisfaction of knowing she still had it in her, the unshakable focus, the unerring aim, the quiet strength that had once defined her. And as she walked toward the horizon, the shadows lengthening at her feet, she felt the weight of her rifle settle comfortably against her shoulder, a reminder of the life she had lived and the woman she would always be.